Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all having a great last day of November. I don't know if you're like me, where you're getting nervous that Christmas is right around the corner, and I have not done much of my Christmas shopping yet. So get a little nervous about the calendar page turn into December, but nonetheless, it's a great time of year, and hopefully you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with your family last week. We're delighted to have our public webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld. And I'll just quickly give you a brief overview of what to expect for the next hour for those of you who may not have participated or watched one of our webinars in the past. But what we're going to do here in just a moment is introduce you to our owners who are currently Signworld owners today, and let them give an overview of themselves and their background and their business. And once we're done with the introductions, then we get to turn the tables over to our participants. And we're going to ask each of you to shortly come off mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and come forward with one question for the panelist of owners to answer. We do ask you to keep it to a simple single question because we do have quite a lot of participants dialed in. We want to give everybody a chance to ask a question. So do please keep it to one. Many of your questions may be asked and answered before you are given that chance. So think of more than one question that you might want to ask when it's your time. So with that said, let's turn it over to our owners to introduce themselves. And I always like to start with the ladies first. So Megan, can we start with you for your introduction, please?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm Megan Greathouse. The name of my business is Horizon Sign Company. I co-own it with my husband, David. We are located in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm looking at your list, Jeannie, to make sure I get everything. We've been in business really operational since last March. So probably, what is that, like 21 months? We have about a 3,000 square foot facility, just shy of. We're actually potentially moving to a 5,000 square foot facility next year. We have 4 full-time employees besides myself and David. Again, looking to add more right after the new year. Our 2022 sales projection, we should finish up a little over 700,000 this year. Our biggest project recently was a big project for St. Louis University, one of the major private universities here in town. We did a bunch of stuff inside and outside of their soccer facility, including these huge legacy wall panels showing all of their previous soccer players over the years, both men and women's. And background of our career, David and I were both in the Marine Corps right out of college. We transitioned from the Marine Corps into graduate studies and both got our MBAs and then went into the corporate world. I was in marketing and brand management for a consumer product packaged goods company. David was in more of the operations, supply chain, logistics side of things for another CPG company here in St. Louis.
Very good. Thank you so much for that introduction, Megan. Let's move to you, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Farrow, 303 Sign Company. We're located in Longmont, Colorado. We're about an hour north of Denver. Been in business 5.5 years. We got 2,400 square feet, looking to move into something about 5,000 square feet next year. Got 4 employees, and our sales projection for this year is about 850,000. Biggest project we just did was a big electronic message center monument sign combination for a customer we've done a bunch of work with in the past, and they decided to expand their marketing. My background is I spent 20 years doing IT, project management, product management. Eventually they had me managing engineers, and I didn't want to do that anymore, so I found signs.
Very good. Our signs found you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining today. Jeff?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Miller from Divine Science and Graphics. We're in Chicagoland, actually Schaumburg, Illinois, which is a northwest suburb of Chicago. We're in our 20th year. I know I don't even look that old. We're in a 9,000 square foot building, which we own. We bought it maybe 4 years ago. We have 16 people. We're down a little bit from 18 people, which was pre-COVID, and we're hiring, so we're going to be back at probably 18 pretty quick. This year, we're projecting to do a little bit under $3 million. And let's see, one of our bigger projects lately is we have a client, we work with an architectural and development firm, and we have a mutual client that builds out like roadside gas stations, like the big ones, like with the Mart, so it's all the exterior signage and all the interior signage. So next time you walk into and you're on the highway and you get off at the exit, look around at all those signs. So we've done a couple of those this year so far. And prior to the Divine Signs, I was in the high tech wireless arena. I was international vice president and traveled all over the world. Got a little bit tired of that and decided to do something different, something local, and the rest is history.
The rest is very good. Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. Jack?
I am Jack Werner. I joined Signworld in 1995. 27 years ago was an operation. Started in 1,100 square feet with one employee. Ended up 10 years later in 5,000 square feet, staff 11, doing 1.3 million in sales. I then sold that operation, joined Ken, our founder, at the corporate office as kind of a partnership arrangement, learning his end of the business, finished buying him out in 2014. And so I'm now the president owner of Signworld, the corporate office. When I answer questions today, if it goes more to my experience running an operation, I'll speak from that perspective. If it goes more to training and policy, I'll speak from that perspective. My largest customer was a regional developer for Subway with several hundred locations, and Subway changes every single sign inside and out every 4 years. So it was a constant $250,000 a year customer. Prior to that, I ran a wholesale food distribution company.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, now's the fun time. We're going to turn it over to our guests to go ahead with their questions. We do have about 15 participants on today's webinar, so we do again ask you to keep it to a single question when it's your turn. So we're going to first start with Pete. Pete, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you are from geographically, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
My name is Pete Borchetta. I'm from Wiley, Texas. I think the biggest question that I have is kind of stepping into this whole new business. Everybody's from a lot of different walks in life. What was the biggest challenge in front of you when you stepped into this new world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a learning curve. Megan, you're still in it, 21 months. Tell them what it's been like for you as you transitioned.
When you're starting something like this, and most of us are starting with an employee and you're building something from the ground up, there's certainly just a lot of unknowns and you're wearing a lot of hats early on. So I think the biggest challenge is finding the right way to manage that effectively, knowing that not everything will be perfect and smooth early on, and just, eating the elephant one bite at a time as you kind of get things going. And I mean, that process probably continues forever. We're 21 months in and I still feel like I'm eating the elephant one bite at a time. But yeah, I think the many different hats and kind of the learning curve up front is big, but you have a ton of resources at your disposal in terms of other more experienced sign company owners around the group at Signworld who can help you through that.
Thank you, Megan. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's for me, the biggest change was I used to work at a company where I'd go in and probably eat lunch at my desk and work really intensely with a group of 10 or 15 people, maybe 20. And, that's not the place here where you're, getting some work done in the morning, going out and doing site surveys in the afternoon, coming back, trying to scramble, get some work done. Your daily work routine definitely changes, and figuring out how to organize that a little bit so that you can be more efficient is kind of a big one.
Very good. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say even now today, but over 20 years of it, especially when you start off, is the tempo is a lot different. A lot of us have come out of, will come out of a job and will be maybe, mid to senior level, typically a more strategic approach every day to your job. But, right out of the gate, it's a very, very high-paced, high-tempo approach, and that takes some getting used to, and then of course doing it at that pace as well as multitasking at the same time. So that was one of the big adjustments. And the elephant thing, Megan, never goes away. FYI. The elephants get bigger, that's all.
Very good. Jack, your thoughts?
You know, I think a Signworld owner at our Discover Day last week had a good comment in when he said, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because we're in corporate life, you were under somebody else's culture, process, procedures, you got to build your own. And you got to wear all the hats, as Megan says, until you can delegate that out. You know, if you haven't understood QuickBooks as a small businessman, you need to learn that. If you haven't been in front of customers for interface, you have to learn that. If you haven't delegated things to people, you have to learn that. So a lot of things to learn, but there's a system to do it.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next guest. Grant, if you can take yourself off mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question today.
Grant Harlow, basically from Memphis, Tennessee. And my question today is, I know when you come out, you're going to have, obviously limited things you can manufacture. Obviously, there's other people you can pull on to do your three-dimensional signs or your lettering and things like that. But how did you deal with installation when the project exceeded your know-how or capacity?
Very good. Megan, you're probably still in that position today as a newer owner. How do you manage installation of projects you can't do in-house?
Yeah, when we were first starting out, we did lean on other Signworld companies in the area, so that was great. We've always found it to be a very positive relationship between the sign companies in our general region, and we were able to reach out to them a couple times. Over time, through employees, we're also introduced to a gentleman who he and his son started a company solely based on installation, is what they had done for other sign companies over the years, and so they now will do installation on behalf of a variety of sign companies throughout the area. So he became a great go-to anytime we could not handle it on our own. At this point, I would say we do probably 95% of the installations on our own, but there are still some of those that just exceed our capabilities in terms of how high we're willing to send our guys. And so we're able to pull on that gentleman who, I imagine this exists elsewhere as well, but that's all he does. He just does installation, and he's got some big trucks, and it works out well.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do monument signs. If I have to dig a hole bigger than 18 inches wide in the ground, I hire that out. We've got a company, and that's all they do is full-time installation for those types of signs. Everything else, we've either had the skill, I've either hired the skill where somebody's no longer here, but we documented how that's all done and just kind of walk through that and train people up as we go forward.
Very good. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, and everything scales. I mean, we have all kinds of capabilities and still, frequently rely on partners, and it scales with you. You typically are getting jobs that you can match up with on the install. And then, like Megan mentioned, there's always partners in the area that you could work with. I mean, just when you get a bucket truck that goes 35 feet, you got a job that's 100 feet. And if you get one that's 100 feet, then you need a helicopter. You know what I mean? So you're always going to be working with someone in the area to do those things. A lot of people outsource their car wrapping, and they hire wrap people. That's all they do is they turn on loud music and they come in your place and wrap.
Very good. Jack, anything to add?
Pun intended.
Realize what a lot of times we look at all these pictures of these fancy elaborate signs. But if 98% of signs in the world are indoors, they're smaller, they're simpler, they're glued to they're put in a frame, glued to the walls, stuck screwed to a post. And many signs outside are lower level. So your staff will be able to do most of those. And then there's a whole resource of other installation only companies out there that can handle the other things.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to our next guest. Chris, if you can take yourself off mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the panel today.
Sure. Chris Carabinas. I'm in Atlanta, and trying to pick out the one question out of all the ones I have. So one of the things I've seen in a lot of the business plans that Signworld has on its website are a number of business cases. And in business cases, one of the key things is delivering high quality on time and doing what you say you're going to do. How do you ensure high quality delivery, either in both those facets? Sorry about the background noise, but either delivery on time or making sure you have great quality? I mean, do you have guarantees in one type or another, and also how do you just manage that internally?
Okay, let's flip it around. Jeff, let's start with you. How do you ensure high quality and delivery on time?
Well, once again, everything scales. So as you grow, your need to have a stronger grip on all that grows and your ability to do it. But I think the key is that first of all, you're going to get excellent training from the Signworld family on the front end. Secondly, you'll have other Signworld owners around you that will help you and coach you through when you aren't sure. And then thirdly, you're going to have the expectations of the customer, and you'll be able to understand what they're looking for. And you'll see other work that maybe even other companies have done that you would want to maybe at least meet or beat relative to quality. And lastly, it's a big common sense thing. If you think it sucks, it probably does.
Love it. Thanks, Jeff. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I guess we don't really have too many quality issues. Part of that is, you know, I can walk into the back when we're doing a wrap and I can spot a bubble from across the room. So we go through that a little bit. You know, the one thing with signs is you got to look at it from 10 feet, not 10 inches. For the most part, you know, and that's something you got to get over. But for the most part, we really haven't had any quality issues. You know, every so often something will go wrong on a wrap and we just fix it. I did look at that as a marketing expense more than anything else. Any of the big projects we've done, I don't think we've really had anything go wrong. So maybe we've just been lucky. I don't know.
You're just doing the jobs right. Nice job, Dave. How about you, Megan?
So a couple things, I think, you know, first of all, we obviously put eyes on things as they're going through the shop, either myself or Dave, usually David, our project manager, Chris, somebody's kind of taking a look at things before they go out. But just kind of doing our own QA process, and it's very fledgling. It's nothing super official. We're just getting eyes on and making sure that, like Jeff said, we don't think it sucks before it goes out. But I think, you know, another thing has been hiring well, and that's not an easy process, especially when you're new and you don't have a ton to promise folks yet, but really trying to hire people who have good experience, who know what they're looking for and looking at, who know how to do the job well, and then doing things to retain them. Because when you find good people, they're gold, and they can make sure if you've got quality people, you're going to be offering quality products. And then related to that, when you're first starting, of course, a lot of your stuff will be vended early on as you're getting some of those bigger projects that you can't do in-house yet. So making sure that you vetted who you're getting those vended products from, whether it's through Signworld or other resources, certainly helps.
Very good. Thank you. Jack, any other comments?
Just real quick, while you're trying to manage quality and time efficiency, it's the ineptness of our competition that makes us shine above it. Most of them are sign makers trying to run a business. We're bringing in business people to run a sign company. So it's a whole different focus.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's go to our next guest. Sam, if you can take yourself off mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Thank you. Yes, this is Sam from Central Virginia. And actually the quality assurance question was fabulous. Thank you for those responses. My question is around sales. Are more of your sales being generated through active or passive means in marketing?
Meaning passive as far as internet and active as in networking, or just want to make sure
Right. Going out, hitting the street, knocking on doors versus taking a phone call because somebody saw your ad or received your marketing email or something.
Okay, very good. Dave, do you do any cold calling? How are you getting your customers?
We have a web marketing outfit that we work with, and they've been good with us for the last 4 or 5 years. I did some analysis a while ago, and we're about 60-40 repeat and referral versus about 40% coming in through the web, net new.
Have you ever cold called?
No, that's really not what I'm good at.
All right, very good. How about you, Jeff?
Well, I mean, I feel comfortable cold calling because of my background. I've never in 20 years had the time to do it. We're at about 85% repeat and referral at this point. And between our networking efforts throughout the years and our existing customer base, and then of course, initially we had Yellow Pages, which would be the equivalent of your SEO and SEM now, you're basically reacting to inquiries and referrals, and the better you do that, the more successful you'll be.
Thank you. Megan?
Yeah, we haven't done any cold calling or anything like that either. We did set up our website and our marketing, online marketing, internet marketing process early on. That takes a little time to kick in, but once it does, and if you keep a halfway decent eye on it, that's where we get a lot of our business. We're starting now at the 21, probably around 18 months, we started to see some of the repeat. I mean, there are a couple of key clients where they're in, commercial real estate and they have frequent needs. The repeat came from them earlier, but now the referrals are kicking in, where we did something for someone last year and they now have another business owner they know who needs something. So internet marketing definitely was the basis, the foundation where it started. But I kind of spearhead our community involvement and outreach and business development. And so I'm at Commercial Real Estate Women, the Crew group here in St. Louis. I'm at Entrepreneurs Organization. I'm involved in those types of organizations, and that's very much planting seeds that sprout over time. But when those ones sprout, they tend to be high quality, high value leads that we've gotten through networking over time.
Very good.
Thank you very much. That was good.
Jack, anything to add?
Just real quick, it's relationship sales. It's not hard sales. It's referrals and it's internet. Our goal is for you to never have to do a cold call.
Very good. Thank you. Our next guest, Erasmus, I hope I said that correctly. Can you confirm that and share where you're from and go ahead with your question?
Sure. Yeah, you nailed it, Jenny. So I'm Erasmus. I'm calling from St. Louis, Missouri. The question I have is around the employees that you have. Just trying to understand the actual skill sets and that you're hiring for, right? What specific jobs are your employees doing, and how does that change over time? I think the two owners that have been in business for a year and a half and about 5.5 years, they have 4 employees, and then the last owner has about 16. So talk to me a little bit about, okay, who do you need when you first start, and then what specific skills do you need as you grow?
Very good question. Let's start with you, Dave.
So the only person that's kind of, I would say, siloed more or less is the designer. So that's kind of its own skill set. Everybody else that we have are more of a production / installation, depending on what needs to get done. We have one person right now who's primarily focused on the printer and vinyl, but will help out with other things as needed. The other 2 guys are more builders and installers.
Okay.
Very good. Megan?
Yeah, so our very first hire was a sign maker, just someone who is very good at production and could handle a lot of installation as well. We actually brought in a project manager second, but it was because he had such a huge amount of experience and could also flex into the sign maker and or installation roles as needed. Graphic designer was third. Then it's been primarily focused on sign making, sign installation early on, I should say. We did bring in the graphic designer, but we have not really gone into any of more, administrative type roles at this point. It's been all people who are pretty much hands-on and have an active knowledge of the sign industry. Even our graphic designer had background with vinyl applications, not on signs, but in different, like on promotional items and stuff like that. But we haven't gotten into any of the more administrative or anything like that just yet.
All right, let's flip it to Jeff, who's got the biggest team on the call today. Jeff, talk a little bit about how that's evolved and what kind of roles they have.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, whether you're 21 months, 21 years, the roles at a sign company are the same. The difference is how many roles does each person have, right? So Megan has more roles right now than I do. And Dave has a few less than Megan does, but more than I do because of the size of our companies. So what happens is as you grow, now you need, but initially you do need somebody with graphic design experience, but that person also makes signs, might install signs, and might even sell some signs for you as well, right? And then, you know, the list goes on, but all the roles are the same. So the most technical, if you will, is the graphic design, because that's a unique skill set that somebody typically studies for. And then, of course, now, I mean, I have 2 people that are involved. I need somebody that has QuickBooks experience, that does receivables and payables, you know, because it's millions of dollars. So whereas before we used to do that ourselves, as well as site surveys. So you scale your company. Megan brought in a project manager early, but it was opportunistic, and it was something now that she doesn't have to do as much of, or her husband, right? Because now she has someone in that role. But every sign company needs a project manager. It just, for example, you know, so that's how it works. But typically, as Jack will tell you, it starts off with that first sign person, sign maker, that is your right-hand person. And then you decide where your needs are. Do you need more design? Do you need install? And then it scales from there. And usually your business and your customer base tells you what to do next.
Absolutely. Well said. Jack, any additional comments?
I think we're good.
All right, very good. Let's go to our next guest. Frank, if you can take yourself off mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Frank, and I'm from Round Lake, Illinois, not very far away from you, Jeff. And I just started talking to Signworld and Jack yesterday, and so he invited me to this webinar. Most of the questions I've been hearing are the questions I've heard and have been answered. The question I was like, are there any, do you, Megan, for example, do you do anything with social media? Are you putting yourself out there, or is it all leads generated through, you know, word of mouth, Signworld, etc.?
Very good. Megan, let's start with you. So do you use social media for your business? How's it helping?
So we do have a Facebook, a LinkedIn, and an Instagram, but all that we do with that is the marketing company that we use, they generate 4 blogs per month with photos of our recent work, and I doubt anyone reads them. I barely read them, but it helps with the algorithms and all that, you know, black box stuff on Google, right? So just having our information, our name, keywords out there in different places across the web, to my understanding, which is fairly limited on this, that helps. So I don't post actively to it very much at all. Every once in a while, if it's a special project, maybe I'll kind of add something up there, or on my personal LinkedIn, I will put up, you know, we put something about the St. Louis University soccer legacy walls. My husband actually played soccer at SLU, so it was a really funny full circle thing for us. And I posted about that on LinkedIn. I posted when we made a list of, you know, top veteran owned companies in the area. But yeah, besides that, it's mostly our marketing company kind of auto pushing those every week or so to those 3 different social media platforms. And I think it's more about how that drives our Google search than anything else.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I have an intern from the local community college here that does all the social media stuff, because I would just not do it. So we've got, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then I've got her working on some blogs that we're going to add to our website as well.
Very good. Jeff?
We do have a social media presence as well. I don't think we get much sales off of it, but it's for exposure and branding and the company branding. And then most of our leads do come in through organic web searches and a little pay per click.
Very good. Jack, any additional comments?
Nothing to add to that, but I am going to start 3 slideshows that are going to go on in the background. There's no audio to them, so we'll continue with questions. The first slideshow shows some of our operations inside and out, so you can see what the facilities look like. The second slideshow goes to what is a sign? What can we produce with the original equipment? What do we need to outsource? And then it goes on from there to show you some unusual signs that we didn't consider as part of what you might consider doing. The third slideshow goes to some of our wall of fame, showing you some of the bigger projects Signworld Owners have done. So.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, let's go to our next guest. Craig, if you can take yourself off mute and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Yeah, thank you, Janine. You know, this question is targeted mostly at Megan and Dawn, I think, but maybe Jeff, you can add in there. But what was your toughest operating challenge during the first 12 months post opening?
Biggest challenge in the first year of opening. Let's start with Jeff. I'll let Megan and Dave think about it. But Jeff, you can go back 21 years and think to what the biggest challenge was, right?
Yeah, I think what Jack said, applies in this regard as well, is feeling uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. It's just, you've got like so many things going on. And, and I was always used to turning around and saying, let's take care of that. Let's take care of that. And when you're in business for yourself, especially when you first start off, you turn around, there's nobody else there. So that was one of the first things that is really, you have to get a new rhythm, as I mentioned earlier, that's different to kind of keep up with the pace. And it's very, very exciting and exhilarating, but it's legit, the pace.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Dave, how about you?
I think my biggest operational challenge was it took me 3 attempts to get my first employee, who did last 4.5, almost 5 years. And one guy had a ton of experience, but just could not come to grips with the new equipment or the equipment that we had. And I think he quit after about 5 weeks. And then another guy had some family, was probably going to work out, but he ended up with some family problems and had to leave. So just having to adjust to that. And every time, you lose an employee, it does kind of take some momentum out. So I think that's kind of an ongoing operational challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Megan?
I mean, similar to what everyone's already said, but I do think that when you're first starting out and there's that learning curve involved, one lead coming in can lead to homework in many different directions to figure out how to correctly answer that lead, quote that, estimate that project, and then actually hopefully convert it and get it going. And then on top of that, you're also wearing all the like admin, HR, taxes, bookkeeping hats. And, so you're trying to figure out the estimates. And then you're also like, why the hell is this form coming in the mail saying that there's something I have to fill out for, whatever tax, whatever. So that stuff is it's a lot all at once. It's a lot of hats, which is again, why I go to the eating the elephant one bite at a time. Give yourself a little grace, take a deep breath every once in a while, because you will get through it. It's just, there's a learning curve up front, and everything takes longer at first, which feels frustrating. But then you look back after 6 months, and then after 12 months and 18 months, and you start to see those little jumps in experience and understanding that really help you get things running more smoothly over time. I will point out too that I constantly am grateful that my husband and I chose to do this together, because we can divide and conquer a little bit. Not that it's not totally possible with one person. We know a ton of great companies that have done it with one. But if any of you out there do have the significant other or partner coming in, we've found that very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. Jack, any comments?
There are going to be challenges. And I think if you talk to 345 Signworld owners, they're each going to give you their own version of it is. And so in validation, talk to enough Signworld owners to learn what some of those different challenges are, and figure out which of those Signworld owners you relate to sort of forewarn where your challenge is going to be. But good news is there's a whole team behind you to help.
Absolutely. Never alone. Let's go to our next guest. Ken, if you can take yourself off of mute and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Yeah, hey everybody, Ken Velder. I'm up in Seattle. Thanks everybody, and Jack, actually great comment. I'll just support that. I've called a number of folks now, and really good conversations. My question is, a lot of the folks that I've talked to have mentioned sort of the idea of specializing, and I guess I'm curious to hear about everybody's sort of journey into specialization or just generalization, and kind of how you chose to go the way you went.
Well, let's start with Megan. Megan, have you started to specialize yet, or are you still a generalist?
I think we've decided things that we won't do, so it's probably more that there have been a few things here and there that we've just said that's, we're going to say no to that. And oftentimes it's things that we probably should have known up front to say no to, more direct to consumer type things, people who called in because they wanted to change the color of their vehicle. We do car wraps and we do vehicle graphics, but personal vehicle color changes aren't going to be what we do. So we're honing in. I think we have naturally ended up getting a lot of business and therefore getting pretty good at kind of larger exterior signs, sides of building signs. So, channel letters, cut dimension or cut acrylic letters, dimensional letters that we can now do in-house because we did make that investment when we saw enough of that business coming in. But it's still a work in progress. I think more than anything, we're seeing which type of clients we really want to be working with and finding the ways to connect with them, rather than saying this is the type of sign or the handful of types of signs that we want to make.
Very good. Thank you. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, a lot like Megan, I think there's just things we don't do. I don't do real estate signs, or at least residential real estate signs. Yeah, we don't do color changes. We tried that once and we'll never do that again. We do about 2 to 3 sets of channel letters a month. We do 2 to 3 sets of like lobby signs, dimensional letter signs, and a bunch of vehicle graphics. I'd say we, full wraps, we probably do 1 out of every 10 vehicle graphic projects, where the rest are just stickering up vans and pickup trucks and things like that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, and this question is, it's kind of like when you're a junior in high school and everybody asks you what your major is going to be in college, and you don't know, so you like make one up. And I think there's a lot of pressure for new Signworld owners to answer that question. And I remember feeling the pressure, but I decided early on that we're going to focus on customer service. That's our niche. And we're going to do that better than anybody. And then we're going to find clients that value, because therefore you could work with property managers, but some of them don't value, so we don't work with them. But but the ones that we do work with, we do everything that they want and need when it comes to signage. Same thing with general contractors. Some are great people and they value, and then some of them are horrible nightmares to work with. Architects, universities, the same thing. So our product that we deliver is customer service. We happen to use signage to deliver it.
Well said. Thank you. Jack, any additional comments?
Well, just unlike the franchise where you're already pre-picking the niche and the customers know if you like them, we're saying start out about general and let the niche come to you over some time. And I think there's some Signworld owners that do it by type of product, but there's really more that do it by type of customer. And then based on those types of customers, there are some commonalities to the projects and end up with more of similar projects.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to our next guest. Jason, if you can take yourself off mute and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm from Houston area. Fairly new to this process. Just had my first conversation with Ken yesterday, so kind of drinking out of a fire hose here. But one question I did have specifically to an area like Houston, where there's probably other franchisees already in place, and when territories get carved out or assigned, are there turf wars if you get a referral that's in someone else's territory, and how does that get resolved or handled?
Really good question. And each of our owners come from markets where there are other Signworld owners. So Megan, let's start with you. Are you competitive against other Signworld owners in your market? Talk a little bit how you all work well together.
We're not competitive. I think so. The territories that Signworld assigns have to do with where you can have your location and nothing to do with where you can sell. So we sell all throughout St. Louis. Sometimes we're doing an installation right down the road from one of our fellow Signworld companies. But one thing I think that works to our advantage is usually we don't know who we're bidding against on these projects. So it's not like we're finding out that John's company down the road is also bidding on this project in most cases. And then secondly, I think there's seems to be for us enough work to go around, and we work together and we collaborate occasionally when it makes sense or help each other out. The other Signworld owners in the area call us and we call them about all sorts of things, from sign specific to bigger picture business questions. And it's never felt competitive or like turf wars or anything like that.
Very good. Dave, in Denver, Colorado area, got lots of other owners nearby. Talk about your market.
Yeah, I'd say it's much more collaborative than it is competitive. Sometimes over a beer, we're just carousing over stories and we find out we bid on the same job or one of us got the same job, but to make his point, there's so much business out there that it's not a big deal. And we refer, I mean, I'd say once a week, either I'm referring a job to somebody who I know it's closer to them, or they're referring something to me. I'd say that Signworld is much more of an asset than a liability in that way.
Thank you. In the greater Chicagoland area, Jeff.
Yeah, we have a few sign companies. And then from a Signworld perspective, the fellow Signworld people, very collaborative, as you just heard. They're probably friends more than just fellow Signworld owners over the years. And if I ever get approved for something like that with one of my Signworld buddies logo on it, I won't bid it. That's just the way I roll. I don't know what they do, and I'll just tell the prospect, hey, you're already working with a good sign company. You don't need anything from me. Now, on top of that, because it's Chicago, there's sign companies, not Signworld companies, but other sign companies. I actually have one that backs up right to me. Jeannie has seen it. There's one door down from me, literally one door down, right behind me, and then 5 buildings down on the corner. So I tell people when they're on their way, where you get off at this exit, and we're your third sign company on the left. and I've never run into those people at any of over the last 20 years of doing my business. Now I've run into other sign companies, but not the ones that are literally right next to me.
It's just amazing. Jack, anything to add?
You realize in your first months in business, going after handfuls of customers, not hundreds. Even mature in business, you're processing 50 to 100 products in a month, and those are repeatable customers. So and then you have products going beyond the market. So bumping into each other, Signworld owners, it really just doesn't exist. And so Megan, you've got a gentleman on the call here today in the St. Louis market. Does it scare you to have another one join the market?
No, please give him my contact information.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next guest. Jonathan, if you can take yourself off of mute and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie, and thanks to all the owners who are participating today. So my question, I'm Jonathan Williams from Nashville, Tennessee area. And Jeff talked a little bit about this, but what was your path to business ownership, and specifically a Signworld business ownership?
As far as why they chose Signworld, or
Why they chose Signworld, correct?
Okay. All right, let's start with you, Dave. Why did you choose Signworld?
I had left the company I was working for. I had done we needed to raise funds, and I was putting together the business model and decided I wouldn't invest in that. So it was time to go find something else. I was kind of looking for a job, and ended up talking to a recruiter, and then ended up didn't want to go into fast food, and didn't want to go into, the home, with your sewer backs up into your house, wherever they call that. Didn't want to do that. And the guy says, you want to talk to a sign guy? I said, sure. I couldn't imagine going into a conversation with lower expectations. And then talked to Jack a few times and talked to some other sign people. And it just seemed like something I really wanted to do. I also went through the whole process with Signorama, which is a bigger, pure franchise play. And, they have a real nice package and everything. It does definitely cost more. They require more employees your first day of being open, which is definitely scary. And my wife looked at me and she says, do you want to wear your shirt or somebody else's shirt? So I decided to wear my shirt. So that's how I ended up here.
Very good. Thank you. How about you, Megan?
So we were talking with franchise consultants as well. I knew that we wanted to do something on our own, but not exactly what. It was very much just let's go out and see what's out there that might be interesting to us. I did start with this mentality of like, well, what do I like? And would I want to get into that? And I like coffee. I like working out, maybe a gym. And then the more we looked into it, the more we realized that we would rather do something that made sense for our family and for, economically and financially. And we felt that the signs gave us a few things. First of all, it's not an actual franchise. It's similar to what Dave just said, like it's our branding. It's the name we came up with. It's us. And we really like that. There's no royalties. We really like that. But there's still a bunch of support and great people you can talk to. And then we also liked the fact that it was a Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Our son was 1 when we signed this, and our daughter was 4, so we obviously have a huge family focus in how we do this. And we didn't want to be working weekends or, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So there were just a variety. And then economically, we were starting this during the pandemic. So we had the unique opportunity to kind of see how the sign industry and sign companies around us were faring during a very tumultuous time. And we liked what we saw there. So yeah, it was a discovery process for sure. But we're happy with where we ended up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jeff?
I don't think anybody.
Nope. Sorry,
Inside-
Jack. Jeff's first. You're going out of order here.
Sorry, Jack. I was spinning out of corporate America right after the dot-com crash. So I really looked at different things, like different pillars of possibility. So I went out and got myself another VP of sales job, blah, 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 blah. Same ugly baby, different dress. And I asked them to hold on to it because it had the same travel element that I was beginning tired of. Then I was looking at this, looking at that. And then the last thing I was looking at is maybe starting a business outside of, my background. And then I worked with a coach and he threw off a few businesses to me. And then of the least likely opportunity, and then the least likely idea was the sign thing. He told me to do the due diligence anyway. I talked to Ken at that time. Jack was a star poster child sign shop owner. And what I did was I went through the due diligence and I just loved the model. I loved everything that you'll hear from Jack and others regarding the model, that there's no rules, you're independent, it's a local business. It was brick, I went through and I didn't even know where signs came from. I assumed they came from somewhere, but it was I just love the model, and 20 years later, here I am.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. All right, Jack, your turn.
I don't think anybody that is a member of Signworld planned to be in the sign business, expected to be in the sign business, wanted to be in the sign business. Many would say when their coach first introduced us, it was the bottom of the list. I made a list of 35 things that are important for me. What my day was going to look like, what my off time was going to look like, what the economics were. Signworld hit all those 35 triggers that are important for me. So look at the business from the inside out. Sign's just a product. What does a life look like in the business?
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next guest. Mike, if you can go ahead with your question for the group today, that'd be great.
Am I off mute?
You are off mute. Yes.
All right. I wasn't sure who was in control of the mute button there. My name's Mike. Tampa, Florida is where I'm looking at. And I guess I'd like to know, look, it sounds like we have 3 owners that are in different stages. So what is each of the owners focusing on now for growth?
Meaning they're still trying to grow, or?
Well, I guess I'm assuming they're all trying to grow. So if they're not trying to grow, I guess I'd like to hear about, why they're happy not growing, happy where they're at. And if they are trying to grow, like what are they, what is he or she focusing on for growth? Are they looking at a particular product that they don't have in house yet, or equipment, or trying to get a certain skill set in that they don't have, that they're doing themselves? Just where are they at in terms of their growing the business?
Okay. So Megan, what are your growth goals and how do you plan to achieve those?
Yeah, so next year is the year we hope to hit the $1 million revenue mark. And, one thing I did this year was join Entrepreneurs Organization, their accelerator program. So that's great. It's kind of taking us through a scaling up process with business boot camps every quarter. And I think one of the major skills that we're really looking at is we feel that our bottleneck at this point is the estimating sales process. David at this point handles about 90% of our sales and estimating work. So I'm further out planting the seeds with marketing and business development. But then by the time someone actually has a project that they want quoted, David's doing all of that. And we feel we need someone else helping him and eventually getting to the point where we can pull him out of that so he and I can be working on, not in the business together day to day. So I think, yeah, biggest capability is bringing in someone else who can help with the sales and estimating process. And one of the major things that we're doing right now is working through that scaling up process in the EO Accelerator program to help us formulate other things, get other processes and systems in place to help with the growing pains that we'll experience.
Very good. Jeff?
At this point, we're always if you don't grow, you're going to shrink. If you shrink, you're going to go out of business, right? So, but the things that we're doing now is that I'm looking at like operational excellence, so that when our customers have an experience with us, it catches their attention that it's uniquely terrific. So with that comes personal leadership and personal development with our people, and really working with people on an individual basis to grow them so that they could be all that they feel like they want to be. And then the other thing we do is I'm looking at our account base, making certain that the accounts that buy from us, that love us, buy everything that we do. You know, we all have stories of Signworld owners that, you know, we sell somebody mounted prints, and then they go somewhere else for their vehicle graphics, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't know you guys did that," you know. And it's so you would think that they would, but so we're always right now we're really cross-selling our base very deliberately to make certain that anything in the industry sign related, they buy from us, and then that we do it in such a way that they shamelessly refer us to their friends and family.
Very good. And I know Jeff let me know ahead of time. He's got a very important call with his biggest customer. So this might be the last question that he gets to answer. So I just want to say thank you for joining us, Jeff, if we don't get another one for you. Let's go to Dave.
Yeah, right now space and people are kind of two of the things. So I need, you always think you need one and you actually need 2 or 3 people. It seems to be how it goes. So I need to add a inside sales project management type. We've got our lead installer kind of doing the project management type, but I don't know that that's the best fit for him. Also want to, you know, add space so that when we do a big wrap project or we do something else, it's not kind of clogging the rest of the shop. There's definitely some inefficiencies there. And then just, you know, continuing with, you know, ongoing marketing. I think those are kind of 3 big pieces.
Very good. Thank you. Jack?
You know, and most of the other options you're looking at, the franchises, there are some limitations. It might be the territory they gave you, it might be the location they gave you, it might be the size of the market. In Signworld, there is no limitation because you're not bound to a territory. You can have regional and national customers. It's a very fragmented market, so competition isn't the issue. The limit of the business is really your bandwidth to hire more and to delegate more and to have a vision to want to go bigger. We have Signworlders that are very happy with 3-4 employees. We have Signworlders that are at 10 and 15 and want more. It's a matter of how big you want your business to be.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Let's go to our next guest, Jeremy. If you can go ahead and take yourself off mute and share where you're from and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Yeah, hopefully I'm off mute. Actually, all my questions have been covered. I know I'm not supposed to do that. I had a few of them in my head, but it seems like, okay. I got one. Does anybody do any electrical stuff, or does everybody outsource that stuff? That's my question. Highly niche sign making stuff, but that's my curiosity.
Great question. Great question. Dave, do you do any electrical work in-house? And if not, how do you do those projects?
Yeah, we do. I mean, so for the big channel letters, I have a third-party fabricator that we've been working with, and they do all of those. Sometimes we'll need to do some backlighting on some lobby signs, and so we'll just string some LEDs on those. That's not a big deal. The only thing we can't do is actually run power to the location of the sign, so an electrician will need to do that. And after that, it's all low voltage going to the signs themselves, and so we're able to do all of that. It is, you know, once it's like everything else, once you do it the first time, it's kind of scary and takes a bunch of hours and, you know, a lot of hand wringing, and then you've done it a couple times and then it's just something else you can do.
Very good. How about you, Megan?
Same exact answer as Dave. We do have a couple of electricians that we are ready to call if the client doesn't have someone kind of lined up and ready, but usually that's not the case. The major electrical work and running the power to where it needs to be is done by an electrician. And then we can do connection. We outsource channel letters at this point, and we can do some basic LED string light type things for backlit.
Very good. And I can speak on behalf of Jeff, who just departed for his call. He's almost a $3 million operation and he still does not do electrical signs in-house. He has chosen to continue to keep outsourcing that. So even as a very large operation, some of our owners just choose to keep doing it outsourced. Jack, any additional comments?
You know, population wise, we probably have about 20 that do their own fabrication in-house. We probably have about 15% of the population, about 50 or 60 that have their own bucket trucks that are brought in over time. So there's probably more installation of electric signs than there is fabrication of electric signs done in-house.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next guest. Jim, if you can take yourself off of mute and share where you're from and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Hey, I'm from St. Pete, Florida. And my question is, after all this time from the beginning, from starting, if you could go back and just change one thing, maybe like, in setting up your business, or just maybe one thing that now that you wish that you had known, at the beginning, that would have made life so much easier.
Love this question. Dave, what would you do different?
When I started out, I was going to manage my own search engine marketing. I spent enough time doing it in my prior life that I figured I could just kind of add that on, and that was a mistake. I would find somebody that does this for a living. I've told this to a few people. It's like, do you want to learn how to do QuickBooks, or do you want to hire an accountant to do that for you? And I'd rather have somebody do my QuickBooks, right? There's a lot of things that you can hand off to other people, and this is what they do for a living, and they can do it faster, better, and more efficiently than you. So that would be the way I would go. The one thing I would say that I did do well was to simplify what we do. There's 8,000, not really 8,000, but there seemingly 8,000 different kinds of vinyl out there that you can use. We have 4. And that covers 90% of what we do. And every so often I'll have to buy a roll for some kind of specialty project, but keep that as simple as possible.
Very good. Megan?
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm not sure if there's anything I would change, only because we've made plenty of mistakes. We'll keep making them as we learn. I think if I changed one thing, it probably means I would have put effort there and not somewhere else and made a mistake in that other area. So there's nothing in particular that really stands out. It's just such a learning process, and the process never ends. I mean, even Jeff said 20 years in, you're going to still be doing the whole eating the elephant one bite at a time. So, we learn from our mistakes once they happen, but I don't know if I would go as far as going back in time. They're going to happen either way.
Well, that's a great story you've written then, if you don't have anything big to change. So great answer. Thank you, Megan. Jack?
I think to Megan's comment, you're going to make mistakes, just learn to make different mistakes. Don't make the same one repeatedly. At least learn from, no matter what you do, Jim, you wish you knew more. You just got to take it one day at a time and develop and build process and procedures, develop the culture in the business, figure out what customers really fit your mix and which don't, which projects fit your mix and don't, and define the business from there.
Very good. Well, we have our last guest who has not had a chance to ask a question yet. So Vikram, if you can go ahead and take yourself off mute, share where you're from, and go ahead for your question today.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're able to hear me.
We can.
Great. So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and wonderful questions, wonderful discussion today. Most of the questions have been answered. Just one that is lingering in my mind is, did you guys leave your full-time jobs on day one? How many months did it take to feel confident that you are in the right business, making sufficient money to sustain?
Okay, so actually this was in the Q&A box. We'll kind of couple this into that question too. So Dave, did you leave your job full-time? And how quickly were you able to replace your full-time income?
Yeah, so I had already left my job when I started this, and I think it was 2 years before, 2 to 3 years before I replaced my last income, and then we're beyond that at this point in time.
Recuperating the gap there. Very good. Thank you, Dave. Megan?
So again, I started this company with my husband. I had actually left my full-time job a year or so prior, over a year prior. for a variety of reasons. And we have some rental properties. I was running those and doing the research on what we might want to do in terms of a business to start together. David did have a full-time job still at the time we were starting. We opened our doors here in March of 2021. February 15th of 2021, and had our equipment by March. And then I think at the end of April, he was already leaving his job just because of the workload and trying to make sure we were keeping up and building it the right way. We started taking a paycheck probably about 6 months in, a small one, you know, and we've just kind of slowly been inching that up over time. I think we'll be back to, you know, what he was making in corporate next year. But one thing that we've instituted this year that's helped a lot with being able to visualize when we're ready to take increases in our pay is Profit First. So that's a really great book that I read and implemented with the accounting that's helped us with that process.
That is a great book. Thank you, Megan. Jack?
Our average to break even is 6 months. Ones that have customer interface do it earlier. The ones that haven't had it take a little bit longer. I honestly broke even my first month in business, took my first paycheck at 6 months. I was up to corporate income at just into my second year.
Very good. Well, that was a lot of great questions today. We appreciate all of you participants limited it to one question. So we don't have rules at Signworld, but you followed our rule of keeping it to one. So we appreciate that. So with that said, first and foremost, Dave and Megan, thank you for taking time out of your busy days and sharing your perspectives and thoughts with our participants today. We really, really appreciate you doing that for us. So thank you. And to our participants, we appreciate your interest in Signworld and joining us our session today. We encourage you to continue to keep asking those questions and continue your conversations with us at the corporate office and validation calls with owners to better understand our model and our business and make that decision if this is the right fit for you and your next chapter in your life. So with that said, we will conclude our session today, but appreciate everybody joining in. Have a great rest of your Wednesday and the last official day of November. Thanks all.